These are not just game rules or math problems. They're psychological profiles. Tonight, on Short Rest Studios, The Mind of a Monster.
Hey there, adventurers. My name is Judd, and this is Short Rest Studios, where we believe fun builds community. Whatever TTRPG system you run, D&D, Pathfinder, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Draw Steel, Daggerheart, Nimble, a monster stat block isn't just a math problem. It's more like an FBI psychological profile that tells you why the killer does what they do. We're going to look at how to read that psych profile and use it to plan tactics for an encounter, the monster's modus operandi. And I'll even give you an IRL example of what happened when I forgot to do it. When we're done, you'll have the tools to know the mind of any monster well enough to give them tactics that make sense, provide variety, and make combat in your TTRPG of choice more fun.
Yeah, Dad never could figure out how to use his phone camera.
I, Edgar Graham Pifflebottom, do hereby bequeath my legacy game table to my son and granddaughter. May you get as many years of joy out of it as I did.
Just a heads up, this isn't going to be like a real criminal profile. I am not an FBI profiler or a behavioral scientist. I'm a YouTuber.
I create content. I don't have a job.
Actually, I do have a job. Don't look at me like that. Step 1, assess the behavioral evidence. Let's say your first level party is facing down a classic enemy, a band of goblins. How those goblins go about fighting their modus operandi depends first, though not entirely, on the behavioral evidence in their stat block. And the first facet of that we want to look at is their strengths. In D&D 5e, goblins have 14 dexterity. That's really their defining strength when it comes to stats. When it comes to skills, they've got a +6 to stealth. They appropriately use finesse weapons, scimitars, and short bows, which means given their dex and proficiency bonus, they get +4 on attacks, and their AC is 15. They're accurate and they're versatile. They're also quick, slippery, and kind of tough to hit, like a greased toddler in a bounce house. What if you're running Dungeon Crawl Classics? Like their 5e counterparts, the DCC Goblin's stats are pretty dismal at first glance, but their strength is their reflex save, their only positive save at a +1. Their action die is a D20, so they can still hit pretty hard. This means they're once again quick, slippery, and accurate. I'm starting a new campaign in Nimble. Monsters don't really have stats in that game, but these goblins have 15 hit points, so they're fairly hard to kill for a low-level monster. They can stab or shoot with a 1d6 +2, which is decent damage, but rolling a d6 also gives them a higher chance of critting and continuing to do damage than somebody with a larger weapon. That means they'll keep looking for an end for their attacks. For low-level baddies, they're tough, versatile, and accurate. Plus, they're opportunistic. When we combine these strengths with step 2, a picture of how goblins think, their psychology, begins to take shape. The next piece of behavioral evidence we want to examine is their weaknesses. Your 5e goblin has only an 8 strength. They're not looking to beat you down because with average intelligence, they're at least smart enough to know they can't. But they're also weak in wisdom, which means they don't have the mental fortitude to deal with an opponent who gets the upper hand in a fight or captures them and wants information. They're weak and they're cowards. Your DCC goblins have just average armor class, so they're pretty easy to hit. Their greatest weakness, though, is twofold. Their fortitude and will saves are both -2, meaning just like the 5e version, these goblins are not going to stand up to a beating or questioning. Once again, cowards. Plus, they're easy targets and they know it. And in my Nimble campaign, where stat blocks are way simpler, standard goblins have no armor or really any defensive capabilities. So while they can take a bit of damage, it's really easy to hit them. You can most likely take one out in a couple turns. So they're, once again, easy targets. Let's gather our behavioral evidence. With goblins in 3 different game systems, we've got 3 pretty clear psychological pictures coming together. D&D 5e goblins are quick, slippery, accurate, and versatile, but they're cowardly and weak. DCC goblins, the picture is pretty similar. Nimble RPG's goblins have similar strengths, plus we know they're opportunistic, but they're pretty easy to hit. So we've got a picture of how each might behave in combat, but the next step is where we can begin to paint a full picture of the goblin's modus operandi. Step 2, analyze the signature. The signature is those defining behaviors like the Joker leaving a playing card at a crime scene. It includes the monster's special abilities or characteristics, traits, skills that make them stand out. Of course, higher level monsters tend to have more signatures, which will make step 3 more complex in higher level play. For 5e goblins, Nimble Escape, which lets them disengage or hide as a bonus action, is their one trait, their signature move. And I think you can probably already see how that's going to work with their slippery, cowardly nature. In Dungeon Crawl Classics, a goblin's signature is just further evidence of their cowardice. They won't really fight unless a bugbear or hobgoblin leader forces them to, and if that leader is killed, they have to make a DC 16 morale check or run away. Nimble's standard goblins have the "ha-ha, missed me" feature. When an attack misses them, they deal 1 psychic damage in return. So they like to taunt you.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.
Step 3, determine the modus operandi. Now we combine all this behavioral evidence to discover how our goblins fight and behave. This way we come up with tactics that are logical, at least as logical as these little hooligans can get, and challenging, and that give your players a fantastic story to tell. What should be the modus operandi of a quick, slippery, accurate, kind of tough to hit, versatile, yet cowardly Dungeons & Dragons goblin with the Nimble Escape trait? They don't want to get too close because they know your PCs are probably stronger, so they use their stealthiness to attack with their bows from ambush. Inevitably, your party will suss out where they are, so when they're finally forced into melee, they'll take a swipe with their scimitars or whatever weapon you decide to supply them with, and use their bonus action to skedaddle. They'll hide or lead you on a merry chase, probably into a bigger group of their buddies or a trap or another ambush. If your party gets the upper hand in the fight, they'll do the same thing, but probably with escape as their goal. How about DCC? Those goblins will behave very much the same, though without a leader forcing them into action, they'll probably only fight if your party attacks first or if they vastly outnumber the PCs. And even then, as soon as things aren't going their way, they'll most likely try to run away the first chance they get because they don't want to get caught or killed. They'll use those reflexes to get away from any attacker. And goblins in my Nimble campaign, they're tough, versatile, accurate, and opportunistic, but they're easy to hit, and they probably know that. There's nothing that defines them as stealthy like 5e goblins, but that opportunistic nature and the knowledge that you could easily wipe the floor with them in a fair fight will lead them to start with an ambush. They can change position and stay in hiding, raining arrows on you until you get too close. You attack, you miss, they taunt you for 1 psychic damage, and they don't have to use an action to do it. But then when it's their turn, they'll take a swing at you. Whether they land a hit or not, because they're opportunistic little jerks, they will then most likely run away from you. Why? Because they're hoping you'll waste a reaction on an opportunity attack, which is rolled with disadvantage, and miss. And why would they want to do that? They're hoping you'll make that opportunity attack and miss because they know their taunting causes psychic damage. And if you don't go away...
Now go away or I shall taunt you a second time.
That last part isn't actually mechanically accurate. These are just some really basic examples. Let your imagination work on it and you'll come up with even more ways all this behavioral evidence can work together. And then when you bring in the other elements of your adventure, location and terrain, other enemies, the actions of the player characters, you're going to cook up some crazy action. Just taking some time to look over that stat block and ruminate on what it means could make you look like a tactical genius and will definitely make your monsters more memorable, even the so-called easy ones. Hey, what's the most boring monster you've ever run, or at least one that you wish you'd handled better? Drop it in the comments, and let's see if we can build a profile together to make it more fun. Just the other night, I neglected to take a few minutes to profile my monsters, and I screwed one up. I'm running the 5e adventure Phandelver and Below the Shattered Obelisk. My level 8 PCs found themselves in a room with 6 revenants, then 5 skeletons come marching up a hallway at their rear. The skeletons are no big deal. The party's barbarian keeps them bottlenecked at the door and takes them out one after another. But the revenants are another story. The fight was a slog. It was fairly exciting, but went on a little too long and without much variety. The party's drow sorcerer made a really smart move. He cast Wall of Fire between the revenants and the party to give them time to deal with the skeletons, except their ranger fighter was on the other side of the fire with the bad guys. The sorcerer got his permission first, don't worry. Basically, I did a whole bunch of punching people in the throat, even after I decided the revenants would just go through the wall of fire and take the damage, before I finally used their Vengeful Glare action, which gives them the ability to paralyze an opponent on one turn and attack them on the next. So dumb. Knowing that they could take a licking and that all they want is revenge, I should have used Vengeful Glare right off the bat and attacked that paralyzed opponent on the next turn and just alternated between glaring and punching every turn. There'd be no need to run away. I mean, even if the glare failed to paralyze a PC, the Revenant would still regenerate. It wasn't even that hard. I just didn't do it. I hope what this tells you is, while more complicated monsters do make the process more complex, it's really not that hard to take the behavioral evidence you have about your monsters and plan tactics that work and challenge your players and give them encounters to talk about long after the game is over. I also hope it tells you that if you screw it up, there's always next session. Adventurers, that's how you read a monster stat block like a psych profile to take your monster tactics to the next level, no matter what RPG you're running. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more of this kind of content, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And please consider supporting the channel by joining the Adventurers Guild at patreon.com/shortreststudios or by hitting the join button right under this video. If you're interested in seeing what kind of tactics you can come up with, even for low-level monsters, check out this playlist right here, and I'll see you next time on Short Rest Studios.